Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Julie. Thank you for joining us for this podcast as you move along your Body MD journey. Our hope is always that these podcasts help give you great information and strategies to help improve your emotional health and mindset so that you're in the best position to make lasting behavior changes to your exercise, eating, and physical health habits. Today, I want to focus on a subject that can be helpful no matter if you're having lots of success with sticking to your new personal goals or if you're struggling with them. I want to introduce an idea that I think my clients over the years have found really helpful when they've been trying to make progress toward changing certain behaviors. Even for myself, I think back and I remember that learning to conceptualize or think about my behaviors in this way was very eye-opening and a big game changer to helping me personally adopt new behavior habits. So here's the mindset shift I want to help us consider today. I want us to consider that we as humans don't do things unless there is a payoff or something good that we're getting out of it. So today's podcast is here to help us consider the motive behind our behaviors. Recognizing our motive in the moment can help us to be more proactive with deciding how we want to respond to multiple choices that we have to make on any given day. So sometimes it's really obvious what our payoff is for having done a certain behavior. It's obvious why we choose what we do. Like we go to work because we want to get paid and be able to sustain a certain lifestyle. Or maybe it feels obvious why you're particularly kind toward your partner and you do things that your partner likes. Maybe you make those choices because the payoff is that you get harmony in your relationship, which feels great. And then that relationship is more likely to last and give you multiple benefits. Anything from stability in many forms to lasting love, for example. But over the years, I've come to realize that the payoff we are getting from other things isn't as obvious all the time. For example, why do we sometimes engage in behaviors that we may later regret? Like perhaps handling anger and frustration with a child or a spouse by yelling and screaming at them. What's the payoff of that behavior, of yelling and screaming? Clients will say to me, there is nothing good that I get out of doing that. There is no payoff. But I would challenge that conclusion. I would nudge you to reconsider if you're having that thought. You likely are getting a payoff as you yell or even right after you yell. The payoff might be that you feel like you're releasing pent-up feelings. Maybe after you yell and scream, you're physically feeling less tight or tense. You may feel perhaps more empowered for a moment when you're yelling at your child or your partner, feeling like there's a bit of power that you've been missing there. Or maybe it's a moment where you feel like they're actually paying attention and trying to hear you. Maybe they take you more seriously when you're yelling. Let's consider another example also. I've had clients that are working on physical health goals and weight goals. And at first, as we consider this concept of what payoff are you getting, they've said things to me over the years like, well, there's no payoff I get from overeating, or there's no payoff I get from eating junk food. I just feel awful about myself, even while I'm doing it. But again, if you notice yourself in that, I would challenge you to reconsider. Even some simple thing as, what's the payoff we get from the pleasure of tasting sugar? What's the payoff we get from noticing that nagging hunger feeling is going away? These are powerful payoffs that we're getting. So let's build a little bit more on this idea, especially regarding the subject of physical health. What's the payoff you're getting from eating foods that aren't healthy? So far, maybe we've only noticed that we tend to eat certain foods without giving it much thought. And then maybe it's later that we come to regret it because those choices weren't consistent with our goals or because we feel physically worse afterward. How in the world then do we come to understand that eating unhealthy food in the first place has some sort of payoff for us? Or maybe we wouldn't have done it otherwise? If that's a question you get stumped with, I hope you'll hang in there with us and consider a little bit more of what I have to say. For example, for me, when I have times in my week that I eat unhealthy, I'm usually doing it in the moment because I'm in a rush, or I have a belief that I'm going to be real uncomfortable if I don't eat something. And usually that discomfort comes from feeling hungry or lack of feeling full, or I'm just kind of unsettled or kind of agitated or stressed. And I feel like if I don't put something in my mouth, that I'm going to remain in that state of discomfort. So the payoff I get from eating something really quick, even if it's something that I normally wouldn't want to have in my healthy eating plan, is that I get rid of that discomfort. Other times in my week, I think I get a payoff from unhealthy eating because of high sugar or high fat foods helps me with my stress level for a moment. It can temporarily kind of shift that emotional state. Eating can be distracting for our emotional state. Eating can be soothing for negative emotions. Eating can become a way to get a hit of dopamine in the brain, which helps us to feel pleasure in the moment. So all of these are payoffs. So I challenge you today, how does this apply for you? How can you push yourself to think about the payoff you get from eating in unhealthy ways? What is the payoff you're getting even when you don't finish your workout or maybe when you don't meet your exercise goals? Again, if your first reaction to that is, well, there's nothing good that comes from that, I would encourage you to pause and reconsider. We as humans don't tend to do behaviors unless there's something good we're getting out of it. So let's consider this. The payoff that we get from doing a behavior can have a short-term consequence, a short-term payoff, or it can be something that we associate with being more of a long-term payoff. For example, why do I personally choose to eat something healthy as the first thing that enters my body every day? For me, it's not because that's the food that I'm necessarily craving, so it doesn't necessarily give me this short-term payoff. But instead, I make the choices I do every morning because I believe it helps my long-term goal. Eating healthy first thing in the morning has a long-term payoff of weeks down the road. I might notice my weight is down a little bit when I'm consistent with that, or I might notice my cholesterol blood work comes back better when I have it checked. These are payoffs in their own right. So I think a whole new way of thinking can open up when we have this payoff concept in mind. We can approach each choice about eating, exercise, and health in a new way. It feels to me like an empowering mindset, one where we can realize the why behind behaviors that have perhaps stumped us for years. I know for many of us, there are times when we question ourselves and we say, why do I keep doing the same behavior over and over again if it continues to have bad consequences for me? And in questioning ourselves, we get frustrated. We tend to shame ourselves for those behaviors. We get mad at ourselves for doing the same unhealthy things over and over again. But if we can recognize that usually we're getting mad at ourselves because we've at some point realized the choices we just made in the last hour or the last day don't have good long-term consequences for ourselves. But where we need to have a little grace for ourselves is maybe we haven't realized enough that our brain is pretty geared to make choices that have an immediate payoff. And remember, that payoff can be a shot of a good feeling. It can be relief from discomfort or an unpleasant state. The payoff can be release of pent-up feelings. The payoff can be relief because you get to immediately avoid something that's hard. So perhaps we could benefit from always being aware that our mindset matters. We can benefit from asking ourselves the question, what is the payoff I'm going to get from doing this behavior? Is it a short-term payoff and helps me with an immediate feeling or need? If so, maybe it's not the feeling that I need to really be getting rid of. Maybe I need to make a choice in this moment that has a strong long-term payoff. And in the short term, I still get to feel really proud of myself for living in a way that's consistent with my health goals. And my long-term payoff is that I'm more likely to actually see the results of today's choice in a few weeks or a few months. This is a powerful mindset shift. It's a powerful tool to use because it builds awareness about what drives our behavior choices hour to hour, day to day. So use it today. And remember, we don't tend to do things as humans unless there's a payoff or something we're getting out of it. Wishing you all growth and deeper understanding of yourself.